Okay, another couple of things that I found recently that are sort of interesting are these model canoes. They're canoes that are carved out of a single piece of wood. This one is about 20.5 inches long, and the smaller one is about 9 inches long. And you can see that they're hollowed out inside. They're really nicely carved out because they're almost paper thin. They're very, very thin walls that these things have been carved out on. They're carved from yellow cedar. Okay, yellow cedar is a wood which is predominant in the West, and particularly in British Columbia, which is where these canoes were made. These are what we think of as Northwest Coast Indian canoes. That is, they're canoes which are made by several different tribes of people who live in British Columbia and up into Alaska, and some of them down into Washington State. But there are groups of these. These come, or at least this one comes more from the north, which is right about the British Columbia-Alaska border today, not too far from Sitka, Alaska. And these were probably made by a tribe known as the Tlingit Indians, T-L-I-N-G-I-T. Kind of tough to say without getting tongue-tied. But these people lived near the coast. They caught fish. They hunted in the wintertime for seals, but mainly they're fish eaters. They had quite a history in hunting sea otters, which got to be a very valuable animal in the 1800s. And they made these distinctive canoes. This is one version. Some of the canoes these people made were 50 or 60 feet long, all hollowed out of huge tree trunks. Okay? And then they had these smaller versions, which would be 1 or 2 man canoes, which they used with paddles, which were kind of ornamented, not as elaborate as the ones I showed you, but much more elaborate than our normal North American canoes that we see. Something about these canoes that are interesting is the shape. They have high bows and stern. This is a cutwater at the bow end. They are usually ornamented with some kind of painting, and the painting is very elaborate, diagnostic, and has a lot of meaning to it to people who understand it. If you look closely at this canoe, I don't know if we could get a real good close look at it, but at one end here is sort of an elongated eye with a central sort of elongated pupil, and that's a typical form which has a jaw below it, and that's known as a salmon trout head, which has been painted on here in a very stylistic way. The salmon trout is what we call Dolly Varden trout out in today. And they have distinctive kind of, you can't see it well in this, but distinctive long U shapes in their painting, which are closed and often have cross hatching at one end of it. They have black, what are known as form lines that curve around most of the objects and enclose things and yet interact with each other. This one is unusual because there's a little eye with an eyelid on it here. At the other end, the painting is much looser and conforms a lot less to the standards of this sort of art, in the sense that it has very, very sinuous black form lines which are tapered and which don't necessarily connect up with each other. And again, there is an eye in here with an eyelid, a mouth that's made of one of these elongated U shapes that they use with black form lines. And there's light colored red paint which is faded and darkened with age here too. And if you look at the front of this, you can see how these lines connect one side from another and make kind of an interesting design on the underside. So this is probably a Tlingit canoe, perhaps a Haida canoe, but I think it's more likely to be Tlingit. There's a little insect damage in it. It's dark, it's worn, it's scratched, the painting is faded, but it's old, although the painting may have been applied later on. So that's a very desirable canoe for people who collect these things. This other one is a little bit different in form. It has a cutwater at both ends, bow and stern, although I think this is the bow and this is the stern. And the painting on this is again of creatures some of which are sort of typical for this kind of Indian style, and one would be this figure here with the big molar-like teeth. This would be classed as a sea monster or perhaps a killer whale. And it has this, again, this eye with eyelids and ovals in it. And at this end there's a very unconventional kind of mouth-like thing. It almost reminds you of a shark's mouth here. The back is almost like petals of a flower, very, very unusual. And on the bottom is the giveaway for this canoe, and that is scratched in it. You can hardly see it. There are the letters that look like A, and then two lines, and then Alaska. And when you see that Alaska scratched in it, you know this was made for tourists. Okay, so this is not the real thing. This may be the real thing, but this is definitely a tourist piece that was sold in a shop somewhere in Alaska, probably in the 1950s. And it's kind of too bad that there are these things, because these are fakes. This is meant to look old, and it's not. So this is a fake, and I'm bringing it here just to show you that it's you've got to look at these things carefully, because there are a lot of fakes of this thing, because some of them sell for quite good amounts of money. So there are two northwest coast canoes.